Hello and welcome back to the last chunk of memory that we are going to do for gate prep. Thank you. Somebody has commented this is really helpful. That's why I'm here today, because I was completely swamped with work and I was very demotivated also in the first place to do these things, because these videos were not getting traction and I was kind of in the verge of giving it up. But thank you whoever commented. I'm here because of you. So the last chunk that we're going to look at in the memory chapter is a very important chunk. I think you guys would have definitely studied about this in the masters and in your bachelors, how eyewitness testimony is an integral part of memory. So obviously we all have this belief that our mind, our memory, our brain won't cheat us. We are very protective, we're very egoistic like that. But unfortunately, sometimes our brain, our mind, our memory also tricks us, and that is what eyewitness testimony is about. So how do you construct, so the new memories are literally correlated together and they're constructed together. Obviously the process is called construction, and then you bring back whatever you constructed is what we call as reconstruction. That's the process of, that's the reasoning behind eyewitness testimony. So you're looking at somebody getting harassed, you're looking at somebody getting murdered or something like that. It's something gruesome. It could be that, or it could be an eyewitness to something like an accident. So mostly eyewitness testimony is associated with, in majority of the cases, associated with what? Trauma. So we try to retrieve, we tend to alter, modify them. We tend to kind of accommodate it however we want it to accommodate, and then you pull it from your long-term memory storage. So we all have, from the long term it's stored. So after you witness something, it is getting processed and it's getting imagine, like I said in the last video, like a CPU. It's getting stored in your long term, and then somebody asks you a question about it, you retrieve it. That is, you bring back to the short term. So now it is brought back to the short term, and then you recall the incident. That's how eyewitness testimonies happen. So you can add a new information that you have acquired. That could be you can change the way you remember it for the past event, and so this results in a lot of inaccuracies. It's not really correct, it's not really accurate. For instance, you have seen the victim wearing a yellow color kurta, and then you read in the report she is wearing a pink color kurta. So there is a conflict there, and your mind kind of adopts the pink color here, because this is from a third person narrative, they would have probably checked it. So something is getting confused here. So that's why a lot of times these eyewitness testimony tend to be a little more inaccurate than we expect them to be. So the memory reconstruction can be fragile, and it is bound to make errors. A lot of times police officers, courts, judges, they go by his eyewitness testimony because there is always truth behind the whole thing. I'm saying there will be only tweaks here and there, little bit of change only will be there, not a big change, right? So, but a lot of cases in the past, in the US you would have seen, even in India you would have seen, a lot of these faulty eyewitness cases have resulted in punishing the person who's not done anything. Has resulted in punishing somebody who's innocent. It could be because of you will be responsible for wrongfully convicting somebody, but it could be because of our own cultural bias, memory schemas. It could be source monitoring, proactive, retroactive interference. We studied about it in the last video, and then all these stereotypes you have about these people. A lot of times, I don't know how subliminal messaging has been used in cinema. I don't know if you guys have seen in this, in most movies, people who have a darker shade of skin are considered to be angry, rough, and not very approachable. So I think it's a very inbuilt, it's like one subtle messaging for you. See, this is what it is, the kind of a thing. So these all leads to misinformation being built in the eyewitness testimony. Okay. So continuing on that, so we all know how the stages of memory often works right? You know that we have 3 stages: encoding, storage, and retrieval. And then we call about what are the types of eyewitness memory is recall, recognition. That is, you completely recall what happened, and then you would have seen in these movies, right? They are either told verbatim what happens, or they are shown these pictures or people are standing in there. There's this famous movie in Tamil, no, in Thalapathy, where this guy is like Rajnikant is standing there, and you're supposed to say if he did it or not. So that's a recognition memory. So you recognize if that person was the one who's committed the crime, or you either recall, and you're asked to sketch. And again, I'm going to give you another Tamil movie example. I think it is also famous in a lot of other South Indian states. This movie in Gilli, right, where he says that he looks like this, looks like that, and then they end up, drawing somebody else. So that is a recall memory. Recognition memory is this how you identify this person has done it or not. So these are the two types of eyewitness testimony. So what happens when this misinformation comes in, right? That is post-event misinformation effect. So this is coming under the misinformation effect paradigm. That is, they're talking about how many errors in eyewitness testimony can be traced to the incorrect encoded misinformation. That like you view an event, okay, that you're given, like you kind of look at an event, and there's misleading information about the event, and then you recall the misleading information than the event you saw. I'm going to give you a slightly problematic example here. Let's assume that you see you look at an event like a riot, okay? So you look at you know who started the riot actually, but somebody is telling you this person who started this riot is from this particular community or this particular religion, and then you kind of incorporate that. You don't know the person who started the who's that person who started the riot, but you really don't know the origin of it. But somebody has given you the information they belong to a certain community, a certain group of people. So you associate that information with the first true information that you saw. So you mistakenly recall, say, yeah, I saw him, he was like this. Actually, in reality, the second misinformation has kind of tricked you into, without you knowing, obviously with no fault of yours, tricked you into recalling the second half of the information, which is not definitely true, or it could be true also. So, but that's not the information you actually encoded in your memory, right? You're kind of recalling something else somebody fed you. So this misinformation effect has been modeled in the lab also to kind of prove that we are prone to such kind of influences. So they had the researchers had subjects watch a couple of videos in pairs, and then both subjects sat in front of same screen because but they were different polarized classes. So they saw two different versions of the same video and projected the same screen. So although they were both watching the same video from the same screen, they believed and started trusting that they were watching the same video, but it was a different version of the same video. So you understand, right? Like they say that when you wear a rose-colored glass, you see everything around you as a rosy one. Likewise, you see a pink, yellow color glass. So all that. That's what they say, no, in Tamil. Kamala kavan helame manjala theriyum. You have something in your eye. That's how you view it. So that is the reasoning behind how eyewitness testimony gets twisted. That's how it is not always reliable. It is reliable to an extent. We still trust, the judiciary system still trusts it, but we also understand that it is prone to some kind of changes like this, some kind of influences like this. Okay, so like I said, okay, I'm sorry, I think I'm going to hear, you're going to hear a few noises because this is, outside noise that's coming from. So I hope you all understood so far. If you have any doubts, please post it in the comment box. You can also write to us in the email ID in the description. I hope so far I'm clear about what I'm conveying. Now we are going to switch to the factors affecting the accuracy of eyewitness testimony. Now we know the fact that eyewitness testimony is not 100% true always like we used to believe. Now we know that it is also prone to tweaks and changes here and there. Now we are going to see what are the factors. So what are the factors? Eyewitnesses make more errors if they saw a crime committed during a stressful circumstance. For instance, when someone was carrying a weapon. That is, why is it stressful? Because you see it as a threat for you also. So when somebody is like carrying a knife or carrying a very big rod of iron rod, you kind of find it very frightening. So you are very stressful at that moment, right? So you tend to make an error. You're not really accurate with your reasoning. You're not very accurate with your perception. Second is eyewitnesses make more errors when there is a long delay between the original event and the time of testimony. So a lot of times these errors happen because probably the crime happened in February and you're saying the eyewitness testimony in November. So there's a formidable gap between the 2 months, right? So obviously. And then the third one is eyewitness make more errors if the misinformation is plausible. If the misinformation is backed up by something, if somebody else is also saying yes, what you're saying is right, you kind of become more confident and you start stressing on the misinformation. Fourth, eyewitness testimony makes more errors when the social pressure is high. So like I said, a lot of people are believing it, are kind of propagating it, so you also tend to slightly lean towards it. Fifth, eyewitnesses make more errors if someone has provided positive feedback, obviously. So like I said, when you're looking at like the previous example I gave you, you thought the victim was wearing a yellow color kurta, but you saw the report that said pink color. So you're going to say, that's a pink color kurta. So because somebody has given you a positive feedback that yes, it is pink color. So you kind of, I don't know, I'm not sure if it's yellow or pink. So you tend to lean towards the one that's on the report, not what you saw. The next half that we are going to look at, what is this, the misinformation effect. I told you how misinformation happens. I'm going to leave this link also in the description. You can take a look at this thing and you can ask me some kind of doubts that you have. So I'm going to go up to false memory syndrome. 1 second. Yeah, so these are all recall and all that. So I'm just going out to the first slide, so it's very neutral, not getting distracted. So what is a false memory syndrome? False memory syndrome is a recall of false autobiographical memory, right? That is, you're trying to recall something wrong, something false from your own life. That is autobiographical memory, is what we call as false memory syndrome. It has received a lot of publicity. It has lately been a lot of do not have independent witnesses. That is, for instance, this has been getting a lot of attention since the Me Too movement started. So you guys would have heard about it. I mean, I don't have any opinion about it. I'm just trying to give an example. In the Me Too movement, you've seen people that they have recalled sexual encounters from the past, right? So this false memory syndrome has gained a lot of traction since then, that we are also prone to giving false autobiographical memory. I'm not saying victims of the Me Too are doing it. I'm just saying it is a possibility, and this has been explored more to back actually the people who have abused them. This has been used obviously in the wrong way, also in the right way, either ways. So this is how it started, the false memory syndrome. That's how it started. So one side of the debate are those who recovered memories of childhood abuse years after it occurred, and then researchers argue that some children experiences have been so traumatizing for them and distressing for them that it must lock those memories in order to lead some semblance of a normal life. That is, some children this is very sad. This is obviously, it's outrageously sad, because children have been abused when they were in a state of they are not able to process this information. They are not able to handle such an intense load of information, and now they have somehow developed a coping mechanism to completely forget it, completely erase it, and so that they can go back to the semblance of something called a normalcy in their life, right? So they believe this repressed memory can be locked away for decades and later recalled intact through hypnosis and guided imagery techniques. So like we saw in the previous thing, we can help these children recover from this, because there are obviously, I hope a lot of you also have seen or read about this, because I have read a lot of things about this. When people say that I completely, even me for that part, I don't remember a certain period of time in my life I was very stressed out. I think I don't remember my board exams at all completely. The 11th, 12th standard of my life was completely phased out. And I often rely on my high school best friend to go ask, who's this person who's talking to me? She's given me a request, who's this? He's following me on Instagram, who's this? So that has been probably the most stressful time in my life. I don't think I was abused, but rather I was very stressed out. So I don't want to recall that. So my memory is kind of don't recall it. It's not a good phase in your life, and it's pushing. So I'm saying something that is remotely abusive for me, like a stressful situation. Imagine something very big, like a trauma. and how your mind or brain is going to cope up. It's going to say, listen, if you're going to process this at this age, you're really going to get screwed up inside your head, so I'm just going to push it away for you. Then we tend to recall it through techniques of, like, say, hypnosis. It could be guided imagery techniques. So you tend to kind of bring them all surface level, and then you ask them what happened. That's how you kind of do it. So recovered memory versus false memory controversy. But even though it focuses on sexual abuse, there's a lot of controversy, obviously, because you're kind of like blaming someone after so many years have passed, right? So some people say that this is a recovered memory perspective. That is, you manage to forget that memory. Okay, that is, a child would be especially likely to forget these traumatic events, right? If the close abuser was a close relative, which is in the most of the cases true. It's a closer relative or a trusted adult with whom the parents have left the child, entrusted the child with. So they tend to forget. So that's what they say. The recovered memory perspective is saying that, listen, the child has forgotten it because they want to carry on with their life. They don't want any interruptions in the family life. Because most of the time this is a secret between us, right, for the child. So this could be that. I've also displayed the study on false memory syndrome and review of 3 cases, which I think it's based out of, it's by Indian authors, and you can look at it in this. Again, I'm going to give you this link also. I think the description is going to be a couple of links. So this is about how in CSA, that is childhood sexual abuse cases, how we forget and then you recover. So the last phase of it is false memory perspective. So this is like a fight that's happening, like how we always have nature nurture issue fight. This is recovered memory perspective versus false memory perspective. So false memory perspective, what they're saying, obviously these most recovered memories are very inaccurate because there's a lot of time passed and they have constructed stories about the event that's never happened. So they are calling it as betrayal trauma. That is, the child has adaptively responded, when the caretaker has kind of betrayed them. They are taking it up, and the child depends on this adult must actively inhibit memories of abuse in order to maintain the attachment to this person. So this could also be because of the person is very close to them. They also like this person very much, but they really didn't expect the person to act like this to them. So they're kind of coping up with it, and they are using this coping mechanism is what they are trying to say.